Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have ourselves some tracks off of an album from Hatrexus titled Zappta The Demigod. And if we switch over to here, this is a really interesting concept here. We've got the art here for it on the screen. Listen to 3 tracks, beginning with Zatar, and we're going to listen through these tracks from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. Oh, they have lyrics. Awesome. Well done. Genuinely, I love when people put lyrics to their songs. It's just really helpful, especially, for example, if English isn't your first language or something like that. I dig it. Those kicks are ridiculous though, man. I love the story that's being put forward. It's really intriguing. I love the harmonies. They're actually, just in terms of ambience, they work quite well. So creepy. But But just the use of that lower voice there, it's just so intense, and it's just, there's a sense of real stress and tension, even without the intensity of the music backing that we had before. Almost sort of melancholic kind of sadness, melancholic kind of tone of those guitars. It's almost like you're being forced to accept that things are going to be horrific. And the best part about this point is that even though this is our longest song at 5:51, there's been so much you've had up until this point that it really does kind of make you go, okay, we've had all this. What is this? Is this going to be like for the rest of the track? Are we going to flip a switch or do something completely different? So that was the first track off of this album titled Zappta The Demigod, this one titled Zatar. Now my understanding is that apparently, according to the lore, Zatar is a demon. Zatar is a demon who emerged from hell to wreak havoc and control all life. Now that's a hell of a way to start an album. It's an interesting, unique perspective, and it does really sort of make you realize just how powerful this person, all the other gods, are sort of cowering, and they're afraid of it, and you really, things do seem hopeless, as if things are not going to improve, and you really do, even though you want someone to come in and save the day, you know they've got a hell of a thing to overcome. It's just a really interesting beginning to this. So I feel like for a first impression, this is a fantastic start. I've enjoyed listening through this track so far, but a few things I appreciate about the song specifically, I like the way that it's structured. I think in a song like this, if you allow yourself to be too sort of constrained by one motif or main idea, or a set of instruments, and don't go away, or kind of like if you stay with a formula, it can be detrimental. And what I think we had here was this journey, this adventure here, with a mixture of different guitar, plucked instruments, bass, sort of drums with those phenomenal double kicks, and like the growled and sort of screamed parts as well, with the sung parts as well, the cleans in different sections, and just this amount of time we had to be able to appreciate the actual instruments. Like that entire last minute of it was just occasional notes that arpeggiated certain progressions and harmonies within this piece. The fact that we feel confident enough for the first track of an album to be nearly 6 minutes, and for the end of it to be a minute of simply time to reflect on what you've been told as part of the plot within this piece, is testament to the confidence of this musician, as well as their understanding and sort of like firmness in their belief and creative vision for this endeavor. And it gives me confidence. So I think structurally, just the allotment of all these different ideas and how they effortlessly sort of went between each other with a variety of different intensities was fantastic. It was also all the different ways that we sung and communicated with the listener. I think that, you know, going from the growls and the screams and the heavier stuff without really committing to sort of like a brutal aesthetic, you know, was cool. It's like, it's more that the sounds, those kind of gristly, fryish parts, are more there to represent more of a kind of intense, sort of almost cinematic experience where there's a lot of force and there's that kind of viciousness to the tone of things. But it juxtaposes with the relative kind of low-key softness, with the malice and danger that is still nonetheless present in the later sections there with those spoken parts. You really do kind of listen and you kind of tremble a little bit. It is starting to get fairly hectic at that moment. And just knowing how to express ourselves at which point in ways that matter is another reason why I think this track works quite well. I think finally, it's like there's this sort of like mistiness and sort of reverby tone to a lot of this track there, where I feel like the lack of super duper heavy elements within is like, granted, like the side chaining of the double kicks, though, almost like machine gun parts were dope. It's not like it isn't heavy, but it's not in a traditional sense. It's like we have these interesting adjustments for dynamic range with it, and the bell curve of it. We don't fill up the stereo field, but then there's still stuff going on, and it's almost like the music is sort of weighing you down a bit as opposed to shoving you down. It's like a kind of, oh, I'm like a frog being boiled in a pot kind of situation, rather than, oh, this is chug 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 and kind of like destroying us. It's an interesting kind of heavy that I feel is quite unique, and I think that there are various components that sort of add to that. But overall, I just wanted to sort of like mention that I think this is a really special way of doing this, and I'm very happy with this first piece. We've got track number 2, Burden of Worlds, Demigod Edition. Great to have the piano come in here with the choir in the background.
Their attack clearly showed that things were going to be the same anymore. It was going to be a world filled with endless pain. Drop down from the sky, a massacre. They killed everyone I ever knew and loved. I'm the only one left. The book opened as I entered the chaos. A connection no one can explain. God gave me his strength to avenge those that I lost. Nonetheless, I got a feeling.
Are those harmonics?
Fine, cold as ice, storms formed all around me. Electricity arcing through me. I don't want to go.
And just that vibe shift there, that just instant moving away from those distorted guitars on the left and right side. Really cool double tracking there. But again, very firm and like, nope, we're going to go back to the keys.
I just want to stay. My home is gone. My voice shook. I can't do this forever. My powers operating with the only thing that I want. I will never.
It feels like the guitars should be a little bit wider than they are in the mix though. Great use of filtering in there as well. And we finish with the choir vocals on the fade out with the piano that we had at the start. It's nicely rounded from a structural perspective. So we've got Burden of Worlds here, Demigod Edition. So I think that this track arguably is about Zappta, the protagonist, who is granted the world god Hatrexus powers of electricity here. Because we're talking about the storm to fall all around me, electricity arcing through me. So I'm guessing that this is talking about the horrific thing that occurred where people were massacred by this Zatar, you know, as they promised to do so, that they were going to go through horrific stuff. It's almost like this is kind of our like finding ourselves journey where we're kind of realizing, hey, this is the burden we have. We're going to have to use this powers potentially in order to fix things. But at the moment, I'm still kind of dealing with my sense of loss and all the horrific stuff, atrocities that I've witnessed. Because I think that's a valid point really quickly. When you are a protagonist in these stories and you suddenly get the powers, there's no like instantly all your problems are solved. You then got to go figure out what to do with those powers in order to fix it. And you've got to like potentially even like kill people or kill Zatar or whatever it is. It's interesting. Again, it's an interesting story, but it's great to learn more about it. And I think just first of all, one thing I appreciate about this track is that it's continuing to explore the lore of this album. It's extending beyond the first track. There is a clear thematic connection between them that tells me, okay, if I listen through this album, I'm going to learn all about this in audio format. I might still have to think about it and to try and connect the dots a bit, but it's not like we're going bumping all over the place. It's not chronological, etc. It's very sort of easy to kind of follow along with and kind of get through. And I think that's great. I think that's really positive. I think in addition to the fact that like clearly the album is structured in a way where like you can follow along and that's kind of nice and breezy and positive. I think it's also the fact that we had that choir with the keys playing something that was relatively catchy. And I mean that in the sense that even though we are having a lot of the sort of more kind of like harsher textures like that, don't get me wrong, I like my metal. That kind of distorted chugged guitars there, the kind of growls and everything like that in certain bits. And it does have a sense of force behind it. We're also playing around with more sort of like catchy textures to try and sort of make it more accessible maybe to people who are like a little bit less familiar with the genre and who need a little bit more like comfort food in regards to the way things work. Like we're not going backwards and forwards and being too progressive about it. We're kind of sticking with arpeggios on the keys or working with those guitars and leads on the side there, sort of further sort of like accentuate them. It's just finding a midpoint between trying to find a song that has like, I don't know, a little bit of catchiness to it, but without completely sort of like kind of dissolving the required edge to it. And I think finally with this one, it was just a lot of the really interesting ideas in regards to what we were doing with the actual guitar parts themselves. It wasn't just that we stuck with down-tuned sort of chuggy parts there. We had these wonderful arpeggios on the guitar on the sides there that it had a similar sense of kind of like stress and angst to them as some of the vocal parts. And I mean that in a positive way. You can tell that expression-wise, the person that is speaking their truth at this point in the song is having a really horrific time kind of coming to terms with everything and their responsibility, etc. And so for the guitars to kind of play on that a bit with a little bit of a harsh tone, but not too much. But for them to be taken, sort of come away a little bit when we maybe have a like revelation or an adjustment in our thought processes, I think is really positive as well. It indicates that the music is trying to sort of change itself to the tonal perception of the person, and there's a sense of connection there. So I think this is just another great sort of like continuation within this piece. There are 11 tracks within this album, and the final one that we're going to listen through today is Free from Malevolence, the Demigod edition. That's a gorgeous synth pad. I love it to pieces. That's beautiful, man. Still minor oriented, but that's fine.
Finally, it's all over.
I do like the tone of those guitars. Kind of video gamey, you know?
From our torture, we were captive for so long. Years and years I've been there for. All the pain of everyone and thing I felt. Every battle led to another death, another conversion, another for the army.
The drums are pretty ridiculous. I like him. Yeah, I think the percussion is going to be spoken about at the end of this. I love it.
There's still so much work to be done. Rehabilitation. Now at least we don't have to deal with that anymore. From
So we're filtering the entire mix in the bus there, with the EQing there. There's a bit of a mildly uncomfortable high-end resonance there, but aside from that, I think it's very good. Yeah, that's an interesting choice. Okay, so that was Free from Malevolence. Track number 10, I suppose, and the third one we've listened to today. Yeah, Free for track number 10. So what do we think that Free from Malevolence is about? I think that this one is the end of that journey that we had with Zatar and Zappta, the one who was going to try and defeat Zatar, if I understand correctly. And I think that that's a great ending to it. Just one who can. I mean, like, granted, if you enjoyed hearing the music today, there is the entire album on Spotify, link in the description for you to check out. And if you enjoyed it, I'd highly recommend doing so you have like the full experience, you know. But I think Free from Malevolence is simply at that end point there, getting away from the horrific cruelty that they had to endure and finding their future free of that pain. And I think that that is a beautiful thing. I adore that. I think just the messaging there is really positive. It makes sense from a sort of like a story perspective there. Yeah, it's got kind of like a 3-act kind of thing by the looks of it. And I think that it's just smart songwriting and from Hatrexus. It's great that they made this adventure for us. So I think in terms of what I appreciate about this song, I think that one of the things I enjoyed was the percussion. The drums were absolutely stellar within this. There were just so many cool, unique ideas in it. And even though it was quite busy sounding, if I'm honest, it's not done in a way where it's like such a kind of a blunt, sharp, quick sounds to it with the way things have been processed. Like they don't have like massive decay tails or like release tails in any of the drums or anything like that. It's just kind of pop in, they sidechain, they cut, and then they bounce. And I think that that's really neat, partially because, especially with some of the longer form sort of reverb oriented stuff like the vocals and the guitars and the guitars I'll talk about in a moment again. Yeah, the percussion was tremendous. I love the articulation, the creative designs there, and I think that it was just nice to be able to find a way to sort of step them up further from some of the other crazy double kick stuff, especially we had earlier on. I think it was also the fact that the vocals were double tracked. So part of why I say that is because it sounds like there's more than one person singing or showing their gratitude for the fact that they're no longer in that situation. It makes it more like a sort of not a choirish effect, maybe singing unison notes, but more a shared experience. And I think there were similarities in regards to the way things were presented there vocally with other sort of like double track parts that add a bit more sort of size and heft to them, which is good. It's just that kind of consistency throughout a record, but also trying to create a world in which you can imagine like a group of people being grateful. And I also think finally, even though this track is in a minor key, it's using those softer elements there, like those softer pads at the start, which just sounded absolutely gorgeous. There's a sense of beauty in that and serenity within getting to the end of this sort of endeavor. And I like the fact that we're trying to adjust the feel, quote unquote, of the song to suit the subject matter, kind of like we have in previous tracks. Even the distorted guitars there was some really pretty pinch harmonics and other ideas there that really made it shine. And I think even though there was more sort of consistency or similarity with some of the harmonic and sort of melodic ideas like in the bassline stuff from previous tracks, it's like it's a summation of the new journey they're on, a new position in life, and I don't think it needed to overcomplicate itself compositionally. So I think that's absolutely fine. I think just a final note before we move into the overall conclusion, I liked the fact that we kind of let those prayers and that gratitude kind of flow on near the end. But that's also a point where I go, did we necessarily benefit from it being filtered into the high end? Now, with these headphones, I can hear the high end in it. It's a very subtle high end, probably about 12 to 15 kilohertz. And that was still, I think, present even near the end. I could just be tripping, but I could just hear it. And so my brain was like, this should have ended, but I can still feel those high frequencies there. And I'm not sure if that's a thing that was actually happened, whether we just did completely or if I'm just tripping. But if I'm not tripping and we did still have some higher end resonance there just for a bit of airiness, I'm not sure if that was necessarily, we needed to have that tail at the end. I could just be tripping, but either way, look, basically, this is this album, Zappta The Demigod, from Hatrexus. We listened through Zatar, Burden of Worlds, and Free from Malevolence. Now, I've already given my individual thoughts on these tracks per song, but overall, I feel like this is a really incredible album to listen to purely from like a story perspective. It's a very unique one, hearing the stories like Zatar and Zappta. And even though you'd probably want to listen to everything to understand all the nuances to it, I feel like just from listening to a few of these tracks today, I kind of get what's going on. And it's made me feel intrigued. I don't think there are any specific weak points aside from maybe stylistic or personal preferences here. One thing I'd sort of mention here that I don't know if I mentioned before is I'm not sure if the rhythm guitars were always double tracked. And if they weren't double tracked, I'm wondering if that was deliberate or not, because later on we did have double tracked guitars. So I feel like it would have been on purpose. I think if we wanted a heavier tone, we would have wanted to double track all of the guitars as opposed to the ones near the end. But either way, I think, yeah, honestly, this is a fantastic first impression for the Hatrexus' work. And I hope that they continue to put out more elongated, so bigger concepts like this, because I feel like it's definitely a really cool direction to go in. So thank you for watching my review of these tracks from an act named Hatrexus off of the Zappta The Demigod album. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via the various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.